Have you ever met someone who turns every conversation into a stage, every mistake into someone else's fault, and every disagreement into a battle for control? At first, they may seem confident, charming, even magnetic. But little by little, you start questioning yourself, apologizing too much, and losing peace. Today, we'll talk about narcissism and the inflated ego, not to diagnose, but to recognize the patterns before they control you. The first thing you need to understand is that an inflated ego often hides a very fragile self-image. A person with narcissistic traits may look extremely confident, but that confidence is not always as solid as it seems. Sometimes it is more like armor. They need to appear superior because feeling ordinary feels threatening to them. They may exaggerate achievements, talk over others, compete in small conversations, or act as if they're always the most intelligent person in the room. But here's the important part. The goal is not always to be great. Sometimes the goal is to avoid feeling small. That is why simple situations can trigger exaggerated reactions. A small correction may feel like humiliation. A disagreement may feel like an attack. Someone else receiving praise may feel like a personal loss. This is why inflated ego can make normal relationships feel exhausting. You're not just dealing with a person's opinion. You're dealing with their need to protect an image. And once you understand this, you stop taking every reaction personally. Their defensiveness is not always proof that you did something wrong. Sometimes, it is proof that their ego cannot tolerate being questioned. If you have ever dealt with someone who always needs to be right, leave a like and subscribe, because the next signs may explain much more than you expect. The second thing is that narcissistic personalities often confuse attention with respect. Some people do not just enjoy attention. They depend on it. They may need constant compliments, constant recognition, constant proof that they matter more than others. At first, this can look like charisma. They tell stories dramatically, dominate conversations, and make themselves the center of every situation. But over time, you may notice something strange. When the attention is not on them, they become irritated, bored, dismissive, or competitive. If you share good news, they may quickly change the subject to their own success. If someone praises you, they may minimize it. If a group is focused on another person, they may interrupt, joke loudly, or create drama to bring the spotlight back. This is not just confidence. Confidence can celebrate others. Inflated ego feels threatened by others. The best way to deal with this is not to fight for attention. That only pulls you into the performance. Instead, stay calm and do not overfeed the need for validation. You can acknowledge them without worshiping them. You can listen without becoming their audience forever. You can be respectful without making their ego your responsibility. Because the moment you become responsible for keeping someone's ego comfortable, you lose your own emotional freedom. The third thing is that difficult personalities often rewrite reality to protect themselves. This is one of the most confusing parts. You may remember a conversation clearly. You may know what was said. You may know what happened. But when you bring it up, they deny it, twist it, minimize it, or accuse you of exaggerating. They might say, "That never happened," or "You are too sensitive," or "You always misunderstand me," or even "You are the problem because you are bringing this up." This can make you question your own perception. And that is dangerous because the more you doubt yourself, the easier it becomes for someone else to control the story. Not every disagreement is manipulation, of course. People can forget things. People can misunderstand. But when the pattern repeats again and again, pay attention. If every conversation ends with you apologizing, even when you were the one hurt, something is wrong. The best response is to stay grounded in facts. Do not get lost trying to prove your feelings for hours. Say what happened simply. Say how it affected you. And when the conversation starts becoming circular, stop. You do not need to win a debate with someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. Sometimes, peace begins when you stop trying to convince someone who benefits from your confusion. The fourth thing is that narcissistic people often struggle with accountability. A healthy person can say, "I was wrong." A mature person can say, "I hurt you," even if I did not mean to. But someone with a deeply inflated ego may experience responsibility as humiliation. So instead of apologizing, they defend. Instead of reflecting, they attack. Instead of changing, they explain why you deserved it. This is why conversations with them can feel impossible. You bring up a problem, and suddenly you're defending your tone, your timing, your emotions, your past mistakes, your entire personality. The original issue disappears, and now the focus is on you. This is called shifting the focus. And it works because it pulls you away from the real problem. For example, you say, "When you mock me in front of everyone, that hurt." They respond, "Wow, you are so dramatic. You always make everything about yourself." Now, the conversation is no longer about their behavior. It is about your reaction. To deal with this, bring the conversation back to the point. Calmly say, "We can talk about my reaction later, but right now, I'm talking about what happened." If they keep escaping responsibility, notice that too. Because an apology is not just words. Real accountability includes change. A person who says sorry but repeats the same behavior is not repairing the relationship. They are resetting the cycle. The fifth thing is that inflated ego often turns relationships into competitions. With some people, you cannot simply share. You must compete. If you are tired, they're more tired. If you had a hard day, theirs was harder. If you achieve something, they achieve something bigger. If you know something, they know more. At first, this may seem harmless. Maybe they are just passionate. Maybe they like talking. But over time, you realize there is no emotional space for you. Your experiences are not received. They are compared. This can slowly make you stop sharing good news. You start hiding your happiness because you know it may be minimized. You stop talking about your struggles because they will turn it into a competition. You stop being open because every conversation becomes a scoreboard. A healthy relationship does not make you feel like your life is a threat to someone else's identity. When dealing with this, do not try to prove that your pain or success is valid. It already is. You can say, "I am not comparing. I am just sharing what happened to me." And if the person continues competing, protect your energy. Not everyone deserves full access to your inner life. Some people do not listen to understand. They listen to find where they can place themselves above you. The sixth thing is that charm can be used as a mask. This is one of the reasons narcissistic personalities can be hard to recognize. They are not always rude at the beginning. Many are extremely charming. They know how to impress. They know how to say the right thing. They may make you feel special very quickly. They may praise you intensely, give you attention, and create a feeling of connection that seems rare. But the question is not how they treat you when they want something. The question is how they treat you when they no longer need to impress you. Pay attention to the shift. Do they become cold when you disagree? Do they punish you with silence? Do they become sarcastic when you set a boundary? Do they treat strangers better than people close to them? Do they care more about looking kind than actually being kind? The mask is often designed for the public. The truth appears in private. To deal with this, trust patterns more than promises. Anyone can be charming for a moment. Anyone can apologize beautifully. Anyone can say, "I will change." But behavior over time tells the truth. Do not fall in love with potential while ignoring reality. Potential is what someone could be. Pattern is what they keep choosing to be. The seventh thing is that boundaries are the greatest threat to an inflated ego. A boundary says, "This is where I end," and you begin. But a narcissistic personality may hear a boundary as rejection, disrespect, or loss of control. That is why they may react strongly when you say no. They may guilt trip you. They may accuse you of being selfish. They may act wounded so you feel responsible. They may become angry because they were used to having access to your time, energy, attention, or forgiveness whenever they wanted. But boundaries are not cruelty. Boundaries are protection. A boundary can be simple. "I will not continue this conversation if you insult me. I need time to think before answering. I'm not available for this today. Do not speak to me that way. If this happens again, I will leave." The key is that a boundary must be followed by action. If you say, "Do not speak to me that way," but you stay for 2 more hours while they continue, the boundary becomes a suggestion. Difficult personalities often test limits. They want to see whether your words have consequences. So stay calm, clear, and consistent. You do not need to scream your boundary. You need to live it. The eighth thing is that you should not argue with someone who needs to win more than they need to understand. This is one of the most draining traps. You believe that if you explain better, they will finally get it. So you explain again. You bring examples. You soften your words. You try to be fair. You try to be logical. You try to show them your heart. But some people are not looking for truth. They are looking for victory. If the conversation becomes a courtroom where you're always on trial, pause. If they interrupt constantly, mock your feelings, twist your words, or bring up old mistakes to avoid the current topic, you are not in a healthy discussion. You are in an emotional power struggle. And power struggles rarely create understanding. They create exhaustion. The best way to deal with this is to choose your battles. Not every false accusation deserves a full defense. Not every provocation deserves a reaction. Not every insult deserves your emotional energy. Sometimes the strongest sentence is, "I am not going to argue about this." Sometimes the most powerful move is silence. Not silent treatment, not punishment, but calm refusal to participate in chaos. Because when someone feeds on reaction, your peace becomes a form of resistance. The ninth thing is that empathy does not mean unlimited tolerance. This is where many good people get trapped. They think, maybe this person acts this way because they were hurt. And that may be true. Many difficult behaviors come from insecurity, pain, trauma, fear, or emotional wounds. But understanding where behavior comes from does not mean accepting the damage it causes. You can understand someone and still protect yourself. You can have compassion and still walk away. You can recognize their pain and still refuse to be their emotional punching bag. Empathy without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. This is especially important with people who use their past as a free pass. They may say, "This is just how I am," or "I act like this because of what happened to me," or "If you really cared, you would understand." But care should not require you to disappear. A person's wounds may explain their behavior, but they do not automatically excuse it. Healing is their responsibility. Your responsibility is to decide how close you can safely be. Sometimes, loving someone from a distance is not cold. It is wise. The 10th thing is knowing when distance is the healthiest answer. Not every difficult person needs to be confronted. Not every relationship can be fixed. Not every conversation will create change. Sometimes the most mature decision is to stop trying to force understanding where there is no willingness to grow. This does not always mean dramatic endings. Distance can be emotional. It can mean sharing less, explaining less, expecting less, reacting less. It can mean no longer seeking validation from someone who uses it as a weapon. It can mean accepting that they may never admit what they did, but you still do not have to stay stuck in their version of reality. And in some cases, distance may need to be physical. If a relationship becomes abusive, threatening, or deeply damaging, getting support from trusted people or professionals can be necessary. You do not need to handle everything alone. The surprising truth is that many people do not lose themselves all at once. They lose themselves slowly, one ignored boundary at a time, one forced apology at a time, one excuse at a time, one moment of silence when they should have listened to their own discomfort. So the question is not only, how do I deal with narcissistic personalities? The deeper question is, how do I stop abandoning myself just to keep someone else comfortable? Because dealing with difficult personalities is not about becoming cold, cruel, or suspicious of everyone. It is about becoming awake. It is about noticing patterns before they become prisons. It is about understanding that confidence does not need to dominate, love does not need to control, and respect does not require fear. A person with a healthy ego can be wrong. They can listen. They can apologize. They can celebrate others. They can be strong without making you feel weak. But an inflated ego often needs an audience, a target, or a mirror. And when you stop playing those roles, the relationship changes. Sometimes they respect you more. Sometimes they attack harder. Sometimes they leave. But in every case, you finally see the truth. And once you see the truth, you can choose peace over confusion. If this video made you think of someone, or even made you reflect on your own behavior, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel for more videos about psychology, human behavior, and the hidden patterns of everyday life. And now I want to know, what is the hardest part of dealing with a difficult personality? Setting boundaries, staying calm, or walking away when nothing changes? Write your answer in the comments, because your experience may help someone else realize they are not alone.